Namaste and welcome to this morning's global gathering or afternoon or evening, wherever you're dialing in from around the world, and a heartfelt welcome. And today we're going to go into a new topic about the past wounds and how these buried old wounds begin to affect our current situation and how to heal from them. And we wanted to bring this whole theme into awareness right now because so many, hundreds of people I know are having trouble with the various lockdowns that are happening around the world. And the lockdowns are creating a kind of pressure cooker. And these old, buried, unaddressed issues, it's like a knee-jerk reaction where our buttons are getting pushed and up to the surface are come emotions that we may not have felt in many years. And others, people that I've known and have known for years, they are finding that old injuries are recurring. Like if they've had an ankle injury or a knee injury, back injury, suddenly they're tripping, falling, and they're injuring themselves in that same place that they had the previous injury. Other people are finding illnesses that they may have had in the past. And suddenly during these periods of lockdown and the stress of that and the uncertainty of it all, these illnesses are taking place. And so it's kind of a wild ride that we've all been living in. And so I really wanted to focus on today, how do we heal these old buried issues in a very real way, in a complete way, in one that you can see physical healing happen, emotional healing happen, healing within your relationships, where you feel more at ease and aren't being as triggered by them. And I have a dear friend who recently came to Greece, where I am at the moment. And she was sharing how, 6 years ago, a 26-year relationship had ended. And she kind of buried the grief, buried the anguish, the upset, and she was left for another woman who actually turned out to be a good friend of hers. And how she didn't have the coping skills. And so she did what most of us would do and kind of swept it under the carpet and did what she could to carry on with her life and just felt, well, I had that one handled. And then during lockdown, where it was so severe in her country in Austria, where she couldn't take to another village to see her children, her grandchildren, and she was really isolated in lockdown. And this unmet grief and loss and devastation, it started just erupting out of nowhere. And thank goodness she had journey skills so that she could finally really welcome these old buried emotions and literally go through a deep process of release and letting go and understanding what took place with her and finally coming to a place of forgiveness in herself and of the other one, and so that she could come to a place of wholeness in herself. And this is what the journey is and does. And I'm speaking both for those of you who are old-time journey people who may have done the journey in the past, and you're recognizing that our world circumstances are really triggering you. And it's almost an invitation is being made from your body to finally meet these old cell memories. And as you know, what science has found, and it's all over the web, you can just look it up, is that when you feel a strong emotion and you repress it, it releases a quantifiable biochemistry into your bloodstream, which will go to certain cell receptors and block them, rendering those cells incapable of communicating with the rest of the cells in the body. And if over time illness happens, well, obviously it takes place where the cell receptors are blocked. And what's conversely known to be true is when we feel our emotions very openly, very freely, like a child does, just naturally, our cell receptors stay open. And what happens with these cells is this. before that old cell dies, that has these emotions, these cell memories, this old buried pain, this stored trauma, some just swept under the carpet, before it dies, it passes on its programming, its cell memory, to the next cell generation. So the next cell generation is an exact replica of the previous cell generation. And this happens throughout our life. As a matter of fact, as many of you already know, when I was 39 years old, I was diagnosed with a basketball-sized tumor. And when I went to go see the surgeon, she said to me, it probably started as one cell when you were like 8 years old and replicated itself. And then towards the end, in the last 6 months before I saw this surgeon to be diagnosed, the cells started replicating exponentially. And so I knew in my own healing journey that part of the gift of my healing would be that I would go on my own internal journey and uncover what was stored inside those cells that were inside the tumor, to really open and welcome and face those wounded patterns from the past. And that was the gift of my own healing journey. And 6.5 weeks later, after doing multiple, quite radical and life-changing spiritual journey, discovered actually a means for all of us, a very practical step-by-step method that's now being used in hospitals and by medical doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, and well, obviously people from all walks of life around the world, to in a very real, very direct way for you personally to go on a very gentle but quite profound journey inside your own body, to uncover these blocked cells and to go through a deep process of release and letting go and, well, coming to understand what's taken place with you at that time that you buried the emotion, and ultimately not only understanding but forgiving yourself, life, others, so that when new cells are born, they are born devoid of that old programming as new regenerative cells. Now, originally, of course, the journey was known for cellular healing, and I first began doing work in cancer hospitals so that people might be getting chemotherapy. And at the same time, be giving them a journey process to get to the emotional corollary of the illness. And it's why, there's 3 hospitals in Israel who, after you've gone through heart surgery or you treatment for multiple sclerosis or perhaps for cancer, after you've gone through the medical treatment, you actually go into a recovery center. And one of the complementary medical treatments that people are guided to do over a week's recovery, and it's centered around the journey process so that people can get to the emotional corollary. And this is why it's so important that we heal the wounds from our past. And I was just speaking with Gabby, the international managing director of the journey, and she was sharing how she was on a Zoom meeting call with a number of people, and some of them had been through the journey in the past. And, they'd gotten on with their lives and healed their lives and were feeling wonderful. And now that during COVID, they'd gotten ill. And the stress of it was driving illness up. And so they were wanting to go on the journey again to find the emotional corollary to what was co-creating the illness. And I can remember one time we were working with the Ministry of Education in Israel, and they had decided that they wanted the government, the people who were heads of all the departments in the Ministry for Education, to undergo the journey for a year long. They didn't want to just pass it on to the teachers and then give it to the children. They wanted to experience it themselves. And so after a year of them undergoing journey training, I was asked into the ministry there in Tel Aviv to sit with those heads of all the departments, head of finances, head of the school principals, who was head of the school guidance counselors, etc. And so we were all sitting in a group of 40 of them that were heads of all the departments of education. And she said, Brennan, I don't want you to speak. I want you to hear the direct experience that people had. And one woman was sharing that she had had breast cancer and she chose not to go for surgery or medical intervention. And through the course of working with the journey, she healed. And there was another woman who had had an acrimonious divorce that was very painful. And yet somehow she got through it, and she was feeling very at home and at peace with herself in her own skin because she met the emotional issues that were tied up with this acrimonious divorce. But one woman I could really relate to was a woman who said, well, I actually don't have any, illness, trauma happening in my life. She said, I was so angry all the time, Brandon. And she said, I've been walking these ministry halls for 17 years. And every day I'd gotten to a point where I was so stressed out and so angry. I wouldn't look in anyone's eyes. I wouldn't even say shalom in the morning, which is their word for hello and peace. And I'd get to a committee meeting and all I would do was fight with everybody. And I'd get home and I'd 8 children and I'd have to go shopping for the food, cooking the food. And of course, they were all late for dinner. And I found myself just shouting through dinner. And I got to a place where I hated myself and I hated my life. And this is what a lot of people are experiencing right now in lockdown. That even if they're coming out of lockdown, they don't know what the rules are anymore. They're very uncertain. And they're finding that they're getting these triggered emotional responses where, out of nowhere, the anger comes, out of nowhere, the irritation comes, out of nowhere, this sadness bubbles up or helplessness comes. And, there's so much uncertainty everywhere where the rules are changing day by day. And she said the first day that she underwent her journey process, she got to the origin, to the emotional root cause of what was co-creating the surface automatic response in her life. And she completed at that deepest level. And she finally let the real root that was driving all these surface responses, she finally let it go and came into self-forgiveness and forgiveness of others. And that night, when she said, when I made dinner for everybody, of course, my 8 children were all late and I knew the food was getting cold. I thought to myself, who cares? It's still healthy food and I'm blessed with 8 beautiful kids. And she said at the end of the meal, my youngest one, 8 years old, she said, Mommy, where did all the anger go? And she said, the next day I went into the Ministry for Education and I started looking in people's eyes and their eyes were shining. And I said shalom to them. And we got into this committee meeting and all of us got more done than we had gotten done in the last 10 committee meetings. And so I loved her story because to me, she's an inspiration and an example of someone who's willing to roll up their sleeves, dive in and go on a journey process inside themselves and uncover their own truth. Find her own answers, find what is really these old traumas, this wounded past, these old emotional issues that we didn't have the coping skills to deal with in the past, and to go through this gentle but completely healing process of the journey, so that when the new cells are born, they're born devoid of that old consciousness. And I can remember the first time I underwent the journey, I had just gotten this diagnosis. I was in the doctor's office, and I'm a New Yorker, but I'd moved from New York to Malibu, California, and I'd gone down to downtown LA to meet with this famous doctor. And at the end of the whole very graphic exam I'm not going to go into, she shared with me that I had was essentially a pelvic mass that was the size of a basketball. And as you can imagine, being in the field of complementary medicine, certified in so many different areas of alternative health and living, breathing, doing that, I was still shocked and frozen. And the more she spoke, the more, the more dire it was beginning to sound. And I can remember finally breaking in and saying, listen, because her recommendation was that I needed to get it surgically removed. And I said, I'm in the field of alternative medicine and I need to be given a chance to give it my best shot, And she said, Brandon, you chose me because I'm not just a surgeon. I also practice complementary medicine, integrative medicine, and attached to this clinic, they do acupuncture. She prescribes herbs. She puts people through guided visualization and yoga and all kinds of alternative practices. And she said, Brandon, if I felt that you could go that route, that is the first route I would recommend for you. But with all the case studies and all the books above you, I've never met someone with a mass as large as yours who has successfully healed yourself. So though I may wish you well, you need to get real. We need to get a biopsy done. We need to find out, is it benign? Is it malignant? But it's not going to matter. You're going to have to have it surgically removed because you're bleeding internally. And finally, I talked to her and said, I've been trained in medical hypnosis and kinesiologist. I'm a master herbalist and on, iridologist and trained in so many fields. And how much time could she give me? And she said that she would give me, that if I could get the bleeding to stop through one of my techniques over the next 3 days, how much time would she give me? And she said to give me a month's time. But if it wasn't significantly healed in that amount of time, I needed to come back and let her do what she knew how to do, which was remove it. And so I had my best friend with me at the time, and I left her offices. And I got to tell you truthfully, even though I was in the whole field of health and had been my whole adult life, my heart was thumping through the roof and my mind was going a million miles a minute. And I walked out her doors and I was holding my best friend's hand. And I looked up, and in front of me was a mimosa tree, a tree I hadn't even noticed going into her offices. And it looked like golden rain. It was beautiful golden blossoms, and a fragrance wafted over me. And I just stopped and looked at this tree, and I was totally arrested by its beauty. And it was as if time stopped and my mind fell away. And out of nowhere, waves of gratitude came. Gratitude just to see these golden blossoms, to smell a fragrance I hadn't smelled. Gratitude just to be allowed to breathe. And when I was resting in this timeless moment, this Sartori moment, out of nowhere came a gut knowing. Somehow I would be guided to heal. And even though I didn't know how that would be, I was so grateful for all the work going on in the field of cellular healing. And it was going on all around the world, and you can look it up online right now. It's all over. And the field of epigenetics. And I'd studied with all the greats who were, experiencing and pioneering that work. And I knew all about how these cell memories are blocked inside of our bodies and being passed on from one cell generation to the next. But Dr. Deepak Chopra, he did a radical thing at that time. He decided to do a radical thing as he was a chief surgeon general in a hospital in Boston. And he said, I would like to study people who have spontaneously healed without drugs or surgery. And he said, because we all know and we all look at the symptoms in the medical field that lead to ill health, that ultimately lead to death. So we know all about that. He said, but I want to know what leads people to heal against the odds without any intervention of any kind. And he amassed hundreds, and ultimately it turned out to be thousands of case studies. And he found that the people who healed without any medical intervention had two qualities that he could find that they had in common. One was that through some act of grace or spontaneous event, they actually got access to this that he called the infinite intelligence, the part of you that makes your heart beat and your eyes shine and your hair grow. And the second thing that they got access to was somehow they got access to these cell memories I've been talking about. And if somehow they spontaneously released, then when the new cells were born, they were born devoid of that old issue. Now, I knew all about that. I'd seen the case studies. I knew the science of cellular healing, but no one had given us a method. And so you can be inspired by the science on the planet and know the possibility of it. But unless you have a method, it's no more than pretty words on a page. And that's where I stood. And yet I had this gut knowing that somehow I'd be guided to heal. And I didn't know how that would be. And so I did everything I did know how to do. A cleanse, all raw fruits, vegetables, and fresh squeezed juices. And I had massages every other day, and acupuncture and colonics every other day, took herbs for cleansing. I had NLP done, medical hypnosis. I had everything that was in my tool bag done. And I was 3 weeks into my healing journey, and I was looking vibrantly, radiantly healthy. And yet my stomach was still taut like a drum and hard as a rock. And I was still looking 6 months pregnant. And I knew that I was going to have to go back into that surgeon in a week and a half's time and do something that didn't feel right for me. And so I ended up calling up a friend of mine who's an oncologist. And I said, listen, we both studied with all the people in the field of cellular healing. Have you come across anyone who has a method? And he said, no, I haven't. But he said, listen, why don't you come up to Berkeley? I have a massage therapist I go to. And sometimes the emotional issues that I've buried, they come up for me. And this is where the journey was born. I was having a massage. And I was just lying on my back, having a massage, eyes closed. And I had begun to panic because I realized that nothing I did worked. And that even though I was in complementary medicine my whole adult life, that nothing had worked. And I had to admit to myself that I was an absolute out and out failure. And for once, even though I'm trained in the way that the mind thinks, I didn't try to reframe myself, fix it, change it, make it into something better, explain it to myself, bury it. For once, I just let myself feel this feeling of being an out and out failure. And I surrendered to it. And as I let go, I fell into a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, and a feeling of, I don't even know what questions to ask anymore. I don't know what answers to seek anymore. I don't know how to find these cell memories. And something inside of me did not fight it. I didn't try to change it, understand it, fix it, analyze it, because that's my area. I just surrendered into this helplessness and fell into a bleak despair. And my eyes are closed, but it was like a black nothingness everywhere. And I just let go into this. And as I let go, I felt as if my form was beginning to dissolve. And I fell into a vast field of scintillating peace, of innocence, of not knowing, name for it, but it was like a love that was omnipresent, pervading all of existence, connected to everything. Inadvertently, spontaneously, unexpectedly, I'd fallen into my own soul. And I realized that this that I am is a light, is a love, permeating all of existence. And spontaneously, a little prayer arose. Please, somehow let me be guided inside that tumor to uncover the cell memories there. And I didn't expect an answer, but at the most unexpected moment, I was guided. And when I got access to the cell memory, which was so visceral, so real for me, I thought, it can't be this memory. It's a memory of childhood abuse, violent abuse from my, all my childhood. God knows, as a therapist, of course, I visited that issue. I've been through 8 years of therapy with it, been there, done that, got the blooming T-shirt on that cell memory. And yet here it was still. And I thought, oh, okay, what have I got to lose? I'll go through some releasing process like I've done so many times in the past. This is my field after all. And I arrived at the same place of acceptance that I had always been all these years. And I asked this peace that was just holding me in an embrace. Am I complete? And the simple word no arose. And again, I was just plunged into despair. And I thought, I don't even believe this is the right cell memory. And even if it is, I haven't a clue how to complete. And in letting go in that despair, I once again fell into this bliss of scintillating presence. And I'm still getting a massage, my eyes are closed and this is all happening internally. And another prayer arise. Please, how to complete? And I didn't expect an answer. But the most unexpected moment, the word forgiveness arises. And what a load of crap that is. I mean, really, what kind of difference could forgiveness make? I mean, I've already long since come to a state of not only understanding, but compassion about this, acceptance of my past. And what difference could forgiveness possibly make? But my mind was saying that, my know-it-all, arrogant therapist thinking mind. And my heart was saying, well, you've got nothing to lose by forgiving. And so I opened my heart to forgive. And it hurt. Because you see, I created this whole identity, this persona of Brandon, the noble, compassionate, understanding therapist who'd come to understand her violent past. And I had to face down 30 years of pride and step down off my own self-made pedestal, facing down all that pride. Oh, it was dressed up as understanding and compassion and acceptance. And it hurt to face down that much pride. But I eventually did. And when my heart fully opened and I genuinely, wholeheartedly forgave, something happened. It was like 30 years of a blame game. It just finished. And I'm not going to go through the whole rest of the story, but I ended up going through 2 more processes over the next 3.5 weeks. It ended up in hospital 6.5 weeks into my healing journey. And in that time of facing and clearing the related issues to this old childhood abuse, I got to hospital, and by then my tummy was flat and I was pronounced textbook perfect clean, completely tumor-free. And so the journey, originally born from my own direct experience, from this willingness that I spoke about at the beginning, of this desire roll up your sleeves and get real and go on your own internal journey inside your body to uncover your soul's emotional issues, the old buried pain, the old trauma, the wounded past, the old cell memories, and go through a gentle but very real, practical, and profound releasing, a meeting of that old pain and a releasing of it, and also a coming to a place of understanding of what took place for you, and ultimately forgiving, so that when the new cells are born, it's born devoid of that old pain. And so I feel really like this whole time of COVID has been this immense worldwide invitation that we all of us wake up, that we all of us get real, that it's time to heal, and it's time for us to awaken to the truth of who we are. And so with the journey, there's two aspects of it that Chopra said were needed for healing. One is uncovering and having a direct, repeatable means to open into the infinite intelligence, that part of you that makes your heart beat and your eyes shine and your hair grow. This vast field of love that you came in as, this enlightened awareness, where you feel yourself connected to all of everything, part of everything, as if you're part of the fabric of the universe. And it's from that deepest level of being that you turn the flashlight on inside. And you undergo a journey process. So it's not happening at the level of the mind. It's happening at the level of the soul. And so I thought I'd take this time. Obviously, I can't take you into the whole teaching of the whole journey work. I mean, that takes a full 2-day weekend, called the Journey Intensive, where you really are in a deep immersion and you're supported by journey practitioners who are there. So for every, 2 people that are working together, you have a journey practitioner there to hold the embrace and to support you going through your process work. And so, the Journey Intensive, not only are you getting teachings, but you're actually undergoing multiple different processes on both the Saturday and the Sunday. And so that's an in-depth experience where I'm really wanting for you to be not only directly experience it from the inside out, but to have the tools so you can work with your loved ones, with your children, your parents, your family, your friends during this time. Take the lampshade off our lights and get in touch with who we really are, to come home to this sense of peace and well-being. I wanted you to just do a short exploration right now where you can experience how recently you may have been triggered, but actually it's connected to deeper pain or issues that's stored inside, and then do a little meditation with you where you can learn how to go inside parts of your body and really welcome this connection with your body, to listen with it, to open with it, to hear what it has to say, to feel what it wants you to feel. And so just in a very baby step way, but to gently learn to begin to listen to your body. So if you're up for it, why don't we do that now? And just treat it as a big divine experiment. How it is that you may have been bearing these old wounds from the past, and that actually your body is using COVID as a time to give you a wake-up call, to begin your work with your soul, to begin your work with your body, and to come home to a sense of peace and wholeness in yourself. So if you'd like to join me, I'd like you to go back to a recent memory. Could have happened the last few months. So some moment where you got triggered like that, and you got triggered and you responded. You barked, you got irritated, you burst into tears, you felt hurt by something someone said, you internalized it, didn't say anything, but went away, and you kept playing over and again what they were saying to you. You found yourself in a situation spontaneously where a friend or a loved one says something, but that then made you recollect something from your past. So a knee-jerk reaction, something where a typical everyday experience where in a knee-jerk way, before you could think about it, you felt up inside of you. And so I'm just going to ask you to get real about that. And let's take a nice deep breath in, letting it out, and closing your eyes. And taking a deep breath in of openness to whatever wants to reveal itself, and breathing that into the room. And the willingness for whatever's going to come up, for it to come up. And then trust in yourself, in your soul, breathing that into the room. And right now, I'd like you to let your awareness drift back over the last few months and just let it land upon a time where you just had a knee-jerk reaction. You just felt an immediately flare of anger, resentment, irritability, sadness, hurt, felt like a failure, helpless, whatever it was. Go right to that exact moment and step into that memory. It may have even been yesterday, it may have been before this even started. Go right back to that moment and step into it as if you're living that moment right now. And feel what you were feeling at the time that the knee-jerk response happened. And now roll the cameras back to the moment before where this impulse arose to have that knee-jerk reaction. So there was an impulse and then the reaction. So roll it back to the impulse. And now roll the cameras back a millisecond before and just stretch time. And what were you feeling prior to the impulse to react? Just really open and stretch time. What were you really feeling? And just open with what that is and just whisper that out into your room right now. And if that were just a surface emotion, just inquiring if there were an even deeper feeling in the core of that more surface emotion, what might that deeper feeling be? If there were a deeper feeling, just open with it. And just let it arise in your awareness. And if there were an even deeper feeling, awareness, or whispered out in the room, that makes it more real. And just embracing whatever's here and whatever's not here, just allowing it. And now letting your heart be as wide as the world, wide enough to welcome all the emotions that live inside of you. Maybe even your ancestors' emotions. That's how vast, this vast open sky of all awareness is. And letting your awareness now go inside your body. And you already know this body is like this container full of all kinds of feelings and emotions and buried cell memories. And, you know, our emotions, they're like little kids. You know, some of our feelings are loud and attention seeking, always trying to get our attention. Some of our feelings are more shy and scared of us. And some of our feelings we have buried them so deeply and rejected them that, like a little kid who's scared, they hide behind closed doors. And so welcoming all the feelings that live here. And now take your awareness and find a part of your body where there may be a little tension or stress or holding or hiding going on, or contraction. Find a specific location where there's some tension there or contraction or something that brings your attention to it. And take a deep breath in of acceptance, and now flood that specific location with your own acceptance, softening it and opening it as if the cells are being allowed to open up. And if there were feelings spontaneously starting to come out of that area, what might that feeling be? It might be as quiet as a whisper. But if there were a feeling beginning to arise out of that area, what might that feeling be? Or if this feeling could speak and had words, what would it say? And how does it make you feel? Let the words arise in your awareness. Give it a voice. This area could speak. What would it say right now? Or if there were a picture there, step into it. How are you feeling in the picture? Just welcome whatever's here and whatever's not here. Take a nice deep breath in, letting it out, and finding another area where there may be a little tension or stress or holding or hiding or contraction going on. Finding that area. And take a whole deep breath in of acceptance, flooding that area with acceptance, letting it be marinated, tenderized, opened. And if there were a feeling beginning just to quietly arise out of that area, what might that feeling be? Or if this area could speak and had words, give it a voice, what would it say? Let the words arise right now. How do they make you feel? Or if there's an image, step into it. How's it making you feel? Or perhaps there's like a cover or a lid over this area where you really close the door on it or put a lid over it. If there is a lid, imagine right now you're taking hold of it and lifting it off. What's hiding there? Just welcoming whatever's here and whatever's not here. And taking a deep breath in and flooding it with acceptance. Letting it be bathed in just pure acceptance. And then coming to neutral inside of yourself. And taking a deep breath in. Letting it out. and put out an invitation to your body that for the rest of the day, you're going to be present to yourself. You're going to listen. And if the body wishes to speak, that you're going to hear what it has to say. That if feelings are here, you're going to open them, open with them and welcome them. That you're going to bathe whatever emotions are here in just your own acceptance. And like a child who comes to you and says, I'm scared, I'm hurt, I'm angry, just embrace the emotion. And in this way, you can begin learning how to be present with your own body and listen to the body's signals, because the body is the barometer of your own soul. And the only way your soul can speak to you is through these signals in the body. And so letting your awareness be vast and spacious, free and endless in front of you. Letting it be boundless and spacious and free behind. And vast and spacious to all sides. The heart is as wide as the world. And the welcome to all that exists here in this. And just resting here in this. Taking another nice deep breath in. Letting it out. Another nice deep breath in. And letting it out. And one more nice deep breath in. Letting it out. And awareness remains vast, spacious, free and endless in front of you. Boundlessly spacious and free behind. Endlessly vast to all sides of you. And just resting in this, as this, so that eyes open or eyes closed, same. And one more nice deep breath in, sighing it out, and you can open your eyes now into this love, into this awareness, into this vast open sky of all acceptance. Just opening your eyes now. And so I do believe that you've come to this global gathering because some part of your being has said to you, it's time to come home. It's time to get real. It's time to clear whatever's blocking you. It's time to go inside and come home to a sense of peace inside yourself and to clear whatever's holding you back, whatever's shutting you down, whatever's co-creating illness, whatever's causing these knee-jerk reactions, and to come home to that love, that peace that you came in as an infant. We all came into this world as this radiant, shining wholeness, feeling ourselves connected to all of existence. And yet, unfortunately, through the course of life's pains and trials, this enlightened awareness that we came in as, where we felt one with everything, got covered over with a series of lies and pains and traumas and shutdowns. And when all of us got to be adults, we covered the whole mess over with this polished veneer, this mask that we then presented to the world. And then we wondered why it is that everyone thinks we're so full of And you can finish that sentence. And then if you're very lucky, as we all of us are right now, life gives you a wake-up call. It's a call home. It's a time where you give yourself permission to get real. And you crack through this phony hardened veneer. And you end up spontaneously opening down through the layers of the lies, the pain, and the shutdown, and eventually open into your own soul, into this love, this peace that is your essence. And it's at this deepest level of being that you turn the torch on inside, the flashlight on inside of yourself. And you go on a journey inside your body to specific cellular locations where you uncover the stored pain there, the old buried emotional issues, all these things that you swept under the carpet. And you go through a very gentle and embracing, but deeply real and profoundly releasing process where you come to understanding, ultimately forgiveness. So when new cells are born, they're born devoid of that old consciousness as new regenerative cells. And I named this work The Journey because your life is the journey, and your whole life long is a journey with your soul. And I feel that no one can heal you. That part of healing is you uncover your own truth. You find your own answers. You go through your own process of release and forgiveness, and your own process of understanding and coming to wholeness. And it's not a process anyone else can do for you. That part of your healing is you coming to that truth inside yourself. We can do everything. And, at the Journey Intensive, we'll have immense support where not only will there be teachings from me, but there'll be a host there holding the embrace. There'll be journey practitioners there so that when you've gotten the teachings and then meditations and process work, you'll go into a breakout room that's private and you'll work with a partner of your own choosing, and you'll partner up and do the journey work together. And if you have any questions, you raise your hand and immediately a journey practitioner comes in and can hold the embrace for you. So if you're feeling called to go deeper, please, learn more about it. You can also get on thejourney.com. There's tons of free things there and videos you can watch. And truly, I do believe that if you're watching this, it's because your soul is saying to you, it's time to wake up. It's time to come home. And here's a method that, in a bona fide way, that can bring you home to that sense of peace and wholeness in your life. And not only that, but can help you have a whole set of tools to bring to your loved ones, your family. And I always say, give the work away and help everyone to take the lampshade off their lights. So I thank you for joining me in this session, and I pray I'll see you along the way at the Journey Intensives and the following satsangs we have, and the advanced level retreats and the practitioners program. And if you've already been to the satsang and the advanced level programs, and until then, a heartfelt namaste to everyone. Namaste.